Gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Stanton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Ms. Lake, your actions as senior advisor are eroding American soft power around the globe. We should not be dismantling the agency that combats propaganda from the Chinese Communist Party, the Kremlin, and Tehran. Especially now, we need to be able to broadcast facts that counter Iranian state-run media spin that is essential to America's long-term interests. Your job is to tell the people of the world the truth about America. And because of that, there's a more fundamental issue I want to address today, and that is character. You see, Ms. Lake, we have both been public figures in Arizona for a long time. I've seen you in action, including your behavior in the last 2 elections. And let me be clear about something. The American people cannot believe a word you say. You ran for governor in Arizona in 2022. You lost fair and square. Instead of conceding, you embarrassed yourself and our state by lying again and again for years, blaming everything under the sun for your loss except for your own toxic politics. You lie about that election to this very day. You lied about signatures on mail-in ballots not matching those on file. Proven wrong. You lied about ballots being intentionally misprinted and then rejected in Republican areas. Total BS. You lied and said hundreds of thousands of ballots were mishandled. Zero evidence. You claimed fake ballots were snuck into batches before they were counted. Come on. You repeated these lies again and again, and you said even recently, quote, "I am the duly elected governor. They just stole it," unquote.
Everything about Donald Trump's illegal strike on Iran has been built on a lie. The original lie, of course, was that he would see no new wars come about under his presidency, which ended in about 5 months. The second lie was that his military operation was a success. It wasn't. And the third lie was the leak out of the Pentagon detailing the failure of his military operation, Trump saying it doesn't exist entirely. And when there are this many lies at play in the Trump administration, you know who has to get involved. Carolyn Leavitt, and she did on Fox, where she was confronted over this failure and in a screaming meltdown completely fell apart. We're going to get into it all. But first, we have to start again with one of those lies, and it was what Trump was saying this morning about CNN's reporting of his military failure.
Unfair to the pilots that risk their lives for our country, and then they get fake news, New York Times and CNN, make up a phony story to get some hits. That's the only reason I cared about it, because those pilots were so brave. I've never seen anything like it. They flew into the hornet's nest, and then they got hurt so badly by what the fake news wrote. And it was CNN, it was the New York Times, and they're both disgusting, really horrible groups of people. The pilots did an unbelievable job like nobody's ever seen. They hit pay dirt. You see where I guess you probably look, they call it the wound. You see where the wound is on the earth, and 3 of them right next to each other. Perfect. And they should be admired and respected for what they did. And the fake news, in order to try and hit me, the fake news made them look bad. But now they look really good.
So Trump continues to contradict the actual intelligence coming out of the Pentagon. And oh, what a surprise there. Trump is contradicting intelligence by saying that the facilities were completely demolished. And it's really disgusting and disingenuous that Donald Trump is trying to play up some sort of patriotism as the reason that the media can't criticize his military operation, as is to say that, oh, if you state the fact that this wasn't a successful operation, you're disrespecting our troops. First of all, that's not true. Second of all, no one disrespects our troops more than Donald Trump does. And third of all, even Pete Hegseth is admitting what Donald Trump won't, that this was a failure. And that is an important point before we get to Carolyn Leavitt, and we can see it in this article right here. Heggs and Rubio grudgingly admit bomb intel leak is true. 2 of Donald Trump's top allies admitted a bombshell leak about Iran strikes was true Wednesday. But they then attacked leakers behind the release of the intelligence report that undercut the president's claims about the success of U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, speaking on Wednesday in the Netherlands, where Trump is attending a NATO summit. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Secretary of State Marco Rubio mounted an aggressive counteroffensive after a leaked preliminary Pentagon assessment said the bombing likely only set back Iran's nuclear ambitions by a few months. Trump had claimed the strikes, though, amounted to a total obliteration. So even Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio have to acknowledge the truth, not only of the existence of this report. It wasn't something that was just made up, as Donald Trump wants to claim, but it's true. And it's something that Carolyn Leavitt wouldn't acknowledge on Fox when she was first asked about this report, but when she was confronted, it was over. The reason why it was such a failure, but first, of course, we have to start with her complete meltdown, screaming about these leakers.
No other president in history could have ever dreamed of such a success, and that's exactly why the fake news media is now trying to demean and undermine the president. And we've seen this playbook be run before. You have hostile actors within the intelligence community who illegally leak bits and pieces of an intelligence assessment to push a fake news narrative. And that's what the CNN story was yesterday. And it's not a coincidence that it was written by the exact same CNN reporter who wrote the original story, falsely alleging that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. The American public are smarter than this, and they should know the truth. President Trump completely and totally obliterated the capability of Iran to produce a nuclear weapon, and the world is safer today because of his historic efforts.
It's interesting to me that we're blaming the leakers and we're not blaming the lies of the president or his poor direction of this military operation. Because again, while our troops served the country bravely in carrying out this operation, the biggest flaw, and this is incredibly important, the biggest flaw in the military operation was Donald Trump projecting it out days later. Something that even J.D. Vance has admitted to, that is truth. Social bleeding allowed the Iranian government to move their uranium, what we were targeting, out of those facilities early before Donald Trump could strike. And when Carolyn Leavitt was asked about that, she wasn't too happy.
So there's one other question that remains out there, Caroline, and that's what happened to the nuclear material enriched to 60% that Iran already had in its possession. It's said to be about 900 pounds worth, enough for a number of bombs. The president believes that it was buried in one of those enrichment facilities. The director of the IAEA isn't so sure. Do you have evidence that you know exactly where it is?
I can tell you the United States had no indication that that enriched uranium was moved prior to the strikes, as I also saw falsely reported. But as for what's on the ground right now, it's buried under miles and miles of rubble because of the success of these strikes on Saturday evening. So anyone saying that they know just doesn't know. And what we do know is the capability of these weapons and the success of this strike, and the fact that the United States military hit their targets precisely, perfectly, and accurately, and we know what that means.
Anyone who says they know doesn't know? Sure, Carolyn. Okay, great. Except for all the reporting about trucks that were carrying it out days before, and how everyone was tipped off by Donald Trump, your own vice president admitted it. This is just such a joke. I'm glad that Fox actually asked that question of Carolyn Lebanon. I'm not surprised by her response, of course, but this is an administration no one should trust. No one should trust their word means nothing at this point, especially when we're speaking about these military operations. But Carol and Leavitt, Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Pete are not the only ones having the value of what they say questioned. Today, we also saw that from Carrie Lake, who is absolutely humiliated in front of Congress, as we can see right here.
Ms. Lake, your new role requires you to tell the truth. For decades, whenever authoritarians and dictators suppressed the people and claimed victory in fraudulent elections, Voice of America countered those lies. I can't imagine how people fighting for democracy today and around the world can trust someone who has so shamelessly lied about her own election.
Will the gentleman yield to the
Ms. Lake,
question?
no, I will not.
Okay,
Ms.
well,
Lake,
just so you
to
know,
regain a
VOA
semblance of
wanted
your
to not
credibility, I
call
will not
Hamas
yield.
terrorists, so
Ms. Lake,
if we're
to
gonna
regain a
berate the
semblance of
witness,
your
we may as well be
credibility.
factual about the evidence.
Are you,
This is the
I do not-
gentleman's
I do not-
time. If you did not yield, you
I
may
do not yield, and
continue.
I'd like the time back. Ms. Lake, to regain a semblance of your credibility, are you finally ready to admit you lost the 2022 Arizona election?
It saddens me that you are from Arizona and you're okay with
That's
the
a
way
yes or no question, Ms.
Saddens
Lake.
me that you are from Arizona.
I guess the answer is no. Reclaiming my time.
The gentleman
I-
will suspend, will stop the clock. For all present, members are reminded to avoid engaging in personality toward the president and other members. Okay, and this is a member of the administration, so I would caution all to stay on the subjects and stay off of personalities.
Would love to.
Please. Gentleman may continue.
Yes, and in this case, these are adjudicated lies. Courts of law have determined that these are lies. These are not me saying it. You didn't
Wow,
just
and the
lie to
courts-
the
the
press.
courts are really
You
awesome
took
right
those
now.
lies to court and lost again and again. Every one of your lawsuits failed. And a federal judge said that you were furthering false narratives that blamelessly undermine public trust. And you didn't just lie. You were formally sanctioned by the court. Ms. Lake, you have been sanctioned twice for providing false information to courts. Isn't that true? Yes or no?
I was brave enough to fight our shoddy elections, and the courts have not caught up.
That was a yes or no. I guess the answer is no. Let me reclaim my time. You have been sanctioned by both
What?
the
I
United
can tell-
States District Court and the Arizona Supreme Court for, quote, making false factual statements to the court. And you were sued for defamation by a Republican election official, Stephen Richer. He and his family were subjected to harassment and even death threats because of those lies. You told your supporters, Richer and fellow Republican County Supervisor Bill Gates, that they, quote, sabotaged Election Day. You accused them of deliberately printing the wrong image on ballots to jam tabulators and injecting hundreds of thousands of phony ballots. What a joke. And here's the thing, Ms. Lake. When it came down to it, you chickened out. You refused to defend those lies in court. You decided to take a default judgment. You are an adjudicated liar and a two-time political
Chairman, I move to
loser
take down
in
those
Arizona.
those
I have
words,
one
please.
final question.
Chairman,
Reclaiming my time.
I'd like
I
to
have one
take
final
down
question.
those
I'm not gonna
words.
yield.
It's the,
He's
it's
gotta
the
get his
gentleman's
I do not
3
yield.
seconds.
I have one final question
Get your
for you,
fundraising
call
Ms.
someone
Lake.
a
You have
liar.
a chance
That's
to
not
answer.
how
Let me
you
one
treat
final
other
question.
people that
The
are being
gentlelady
questioned.
will suspend, please. Go ahead. You may
You
continue.
lost for governor in 2022 to Katie Hobbs. You lost even worse to Ruben Gallego for Senate in 2024. Well, Arizona has another election for governor next year. Will you do us all a favor and run it back and run for governor again? I yield.
The gentlelady
No more questions.
Can I
respond. You
respond
may
to some of
respond.
that? Because that was complete insanity. I wish I could yield back the last 5 minutes of my life, actually. And I want to apologize to the people of Arizona that we have somebody.
This is an administration full of liars. That's what they do. That's all they can do. And it's got to be called out. We're certainly going to do so on this show every single day. And if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.